KCAA 1050 AM and Express 106.5 FM.
Safari was conducted by a zoologist, and accompanying us on the trip was a Zulu. So as my son and I were traveling on the safari, the zoologist was just a wealth of information about animals and about their behaviors and their mating practices, their eating practices, just all kinds of intricate, even down to the shape of their teeth and how they prune the branches when they bite them so that the branch can reproduce again, and talking about the ecosystem. Only problem was we've seen a lot of great animals, but we've not seen the elephant. And we were trying to find an elephant. The zoologist could explain him, but he couldn't find him. Finally, the Zulu stood up on the edge of the Jeep and said, "The elephant is over there." And we went right to it. And that's where all of this began to swell in my brain. I'm sitting beside intellect and instinct, and how one associates with the other is the catalyst through which I wrote the book.
Awesome. And of course, unfortunately, most people are fearful of pursuing their purpose. And of course, for that person who's, say, for instance, disgusted with their lot in life, they're fearful of taking that next step, hating life on the job, but they're too afraid to take that next step. What kind of advice would you give that person?
You have the power to change it. It's not the boss. We always wait on somebody else to change things for us and then grieve because they won't help us, or this one won't help us, or so-and-so didn't loan me the money. You have the power and the creativity within yourself to change your circumstances. And I know it sounds like bootstrap, tough love, all that sort of thing, but ultimately, sustained change has to come from you, because nobody's going to help you long enough to make you feel secure. So even if you get assistance when you need it, you can't count on other people to sustain you. It may be a bridge over a troubled time. And I wrote Instinct to share with people that they may be pacing in the cage of frustration, but the gate is open, and I talked about how to get into the wild of a bigger idea and a better life.
And of course, Bishop, there are so many people who have the skills, they have the raw skills to do whatever it is that they want. I remember hearing you at Los Angeles a few years ago, and you talked about how God created the tree, but he didn't create the desk. It's going to take some work to make that happen. There are so many people who have it deep down within themselves. How do you get that out of them? And of course, I also love your song that's called Manifest. You talk about being pregnant with possibilities, and that song inspires me big time. How do you inspire others that it's been there all along?
It has been there all along, and I think sometimes we have a big grand idea of how we want to roll it out, but if you can't roll it out the way you want to, roll it out the best way you can. If you have to roll it out the back of your car, roll it out. If you have to start in B theaters and small markets, roll it out. If you have to produce a play that only 100 people come to see, roll it out. Keep rolling it out until somebody takes you seriously. Don't despise the day of small beginnings. It does not matter where we start, it matters where we finish.
Without question. And of course, my pastor and your friend Bishop McKinney has a saying that life is not a gravy train with biscuit wheels. And of course, people see you and they think that it's a gravy train with biscuit wheels, but you've had your ups and downs, including your criticisms. In your book, you talk about the giraffe and the tree. Expound on that for us, especially when it comes to dealing with criticism.
Well, it's very, very simple. The giraffe eats from the tops of the trees, and he eats on the level of his vision. But he is also in the sight line of the turtle beneath his feet, who often eats from this level of his vision, but is critical of the giraffe above his head. I wrote in the book about how to manage criticisms, because I have had them and everybody has them. More of anything means more of everything. More life, more talent, more skill, more criticism. More means more, and you can't have more of this and not have more of that. But you have to keep it in perspective. Often the person who's criticizing you has never been you. And as they say what they're saying, it makes sense to them because they're crawling through the grass while you're eating out the trees, okay? And it makes perfect sense on the level you're on that I should have made that decision or this one because of your perspective. But I have access to information in my sight line that modifies my decision in my direction. And I said it not because I'm wounded, because I'm cool with it. I said it because I know many other people suffer from the lacerations to the soul of other people's ideas and opinions that's left them scarred in deep ways. And I'm kind of trying to help them to manage that so that they don't become distracted by something that everybody has to deal with, but you don't have to acquiesce to the level of the turtle when you think like a giraffe.
And thank you. One of the things that I love about you is you don't mind giving other people an opportunity. And of course, we know that you came into your own, at least on the national sense, with Carlton Pearson. You gave other people their opportunities. That's a way of investing in people. Why is it important for you, or why is it important for people within our African American community to invest in each other?
It is beyond important. It's downright critical. If you get a platform and you never share it with anybody, shame on you. Now, by the same token, you can't share it with everybody who hits you up on Twitter and Facebook and the bombarding that you get when you get in this light of everybody wants you to speak out for AIDS and speak out for this and speak out for Alzheimer's and speak out for kidney disease. You can't do everything, but you ought to do something. And I've always done that. And I always will, because I think, like Joseph, that God did not do this for me, but for the posterity of those that I am associated with and those around me and those that should come after me. And so I have an obligation at this point, not just to be on the stage, but to become a stage for somebody else to stand on.
Awesome. A couple more quick questions. I know that there's a lot of pastors out there who spend more time at church than with their families. And I asked this question the other night in the press gathering. What is your advice to them? Because there's a lot of people who see how busy you are. There's a lot of other pastors, again, who are mainly away from their families. How do you create that balance so that you don't save the world and lose your own family?
It's really tough, not just for pastors, but doctors and lawyers and professors. And anytime you're good at what you do, it takes you away from what you love. And it's really, really tough. I will not oversimplify that. But I tried to not be AWOL in the same place 2 days in a row. So if I'm missing from something I need to be doing with my staff because I went with my family, then tomorrow I'm going to be away from my family so I can meet with my staff. And the next day I'm going to be away from both of them so I can meet with me. But you have to slice the pie up and give everybody a piece of you, a piece of your attention and affirmation. But I can say this, since you addressed it to pastors in particular, if you save the world and lose your house, it's very painful, and it will hurt your mission and your message. And though you can survive it, it does cause a deduction in some way.
Okay, well said. Final question, Bishop. If you had an opportunity to spend an evening at dinner with anyone from our illustrious Black history past, who would it be, and what would that conversation be like? And it could be multiple people. But who would Bishop T.D. Jakes want to sit down and just chit-chat with if you had an opportunity to do that?
Nelson Mandela, Dr. King, Harriet Tubman, Harriet Belafonte, who's living, you know. There are a lot of people that I would like to sit down and talk to, because they survived at a time, most of them, that life was tough. And I would like to hear the inside story, the stories that are not written, what it cost you to be you. We chronicle what you accomplish, but never how much you paid to do it. How much of your life did you give up to make the world a better place? And how do you reconcile in your own human need as a finite being, the use of your days to move the world and then lay down your life? And is it enough to be appreciated in an encyclopedia? And Nelson Mandela, how did you balance the natural propensity for revenge after the apartheid and the swelling anger that existed in South Africa against the far loftier and more important ideal of sustaining the country? And what did it take to hold those two truths in perfect tension? Those would be some of the conversations.
Once again, everybody, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is the Cut Chronicles, where we chronicle urban life. You just heard an interview that I did with Bishop T.D. Jakes, and I hope that it inspired you. In fact, the name of that particular book is called Instinct. It's a book that he put out a few years ago, but nevertheless, it's still one of my favorites from him because, again, it talks about having the instinct. So we all have to have that instinct to be able to follow our dreams, follow our goals. Too many times people give up on their visions because they lose that instinct. And of course, just like, for instance, the late Kobe Bryant. Kobe had that killer instinct when it came to playing basketball. Shaq, those are the guys who became champions because of instinct. And so people sometimes ask me, how have you basically stayed the course after all of these years of having dreams of doing what I do ever since I was a child? Well, part of that is having the instinct, and also the instinct to fight through all kinds of adversities and just to be able to get here to where I am. And I'm so grateful, and I'm prayerful that those of you who are listening right now, that you will have the instinct, whether you want to be an actor, whether you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a preacher, a professor, whatever it is. I encourage you, just like Bishop was talking about, to have that instinct. Well, it's time for us to take our first break. When we come back, we've got some more great conversation headed your way, including some conversation regarding this Holy Week. And also want to give a shout out right now to some of the listeners right now. Lakeisha Jordan, my friend, she is listening in Greensboro, North Carolina. So thank you, Lakeisha, for tuning in. And if you are tuning in, we thank you for tuning in as well. In fact, if you would like to even call, we have a phone number here. It's 909-792-5222. 909-792-5222. If you'd like to give a shout out here and comment on some of the stuff that we are going to be talking about in just a minute. Again, we'll have that plus more, but first this. Joel Preach and Team California Steppers presents the first Friday Grown Folk Chicago Steppin' Set, Friday, April 7th, 7 p.m. at Afro City inside the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall in Los Angeles. Inland Empire Steppers don't drive. Catch our luxurious party bus to Los Angeles with pickup stops in Riverside at 6 and Ontario at 7. Bus fare is only $40, and that includes admission to the set. Reserve your seat today at 877-370-4487 or visit teamcaliforniasteppers.com.
Self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Have you considered interviewing a parent or grandparent to preserve their history but don't know where to start or what questions to ask? If so, help has finally come. Dr. Eric J. Chambers presents Mama, I Want to Know You and Daddy, I Want to Know You, 2 books that will prompt you with over 200 questions that will help you record those sacred stories for the ages. Questions like, who were your grandparents? What were their occupations? Where were they born? Describe your favorite childhood memories. What are your fondest memories at Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and more? What was the proudest day of your life? How do you want to be remembered? What are your favorite scriptures, colors, and food? These books will help you write your family's history. Do it before dementia or time robs you of this opportunity. Order your copies today at whodatpublishinghouse.com. That's WHODAT publishinghouse.com. Pastor Alaric Singletary and the Wind of the Spirit Worship Center, located at 6476 Streeter Avenue in Riverside, invites you to their Resurrection Day service. It's Sunday morning, April 9th at 9 a.m. It begins with a live outdoor dramatization of the walk Jesus made down the Via Dolorosa. Come and experience the reenactment of this historical walk beginning at Central Avenue and Carlo Drive in Riverside. The processional ends at the Wind of the Spirit Worship Center, followed by praise, worship, and the Word of God. Join us at 9 a.m. at 6476 Streeter Avenue in Riverside, or watch online at thewindchurch.org. KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. We are an NBC affiliate. Again, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is the Cut Chronicles, where we chronicle urban life. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. And at this time, what I want to do is move the program forward with a friend, and he's also a mentor. His name is Pastor John T. McCall. He's the founder and the CEO of a nonprofit out of Pasadena called DeVille Family and Youth Services. And he's also the pastor of Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in the beautiful city of Roses, Pasadena. Pastor McCall, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Brother Eric. Great to be here tonight.
Well, it's good having you here. We are going to be talking just this first segment here about what this week is all about. It's Holy Week. There's a lot of churches that are having revivals. There's the last 7 sayings and various other things. For the person who is not familiar with, say, for instance, this particular week, tell us about Holy Week and why it's important as a part of our faith.
Well, for the believer, this is Super Bowl Sunday. I like to refer to it as Resurrection Weekend. Not just Resurrection Sunday or Easter Sunday. Resurrection Weekend just sounds really big. I mean, what Jesus did for us on Calvary, he got up. And for every pastor, for every church, this is the Super Bowl of the church. And your question was about for those who don't believe. This is an opportunity, I believe, for every believer to extend an invitation to the unsaved and to the unchurched to get to come know a Savior, get to come know a man whose name is Jesus, who can save you, can turn your life around, who can do the impossible, who can lift you up, who can break the bondages off of your life, who can turn you around, who can hold you and keep you, who can heal you, most importantly, but he can save you for eternity. And so I see it as an opportunity to witness. Evangelism at its best, to be able to go share the good news. That's why he came. He came to die for all of your sins, all of your wrong, that you before the Father can appear righteous, covered by his blood. It's an amazing, exciting story when you tell it. And for anybody to reject it, oh, what a sadness it has to be to hear anybody not come to Jesus or reject the gospel message.
And of course, this is the most well-attended church service of the year. It is a time in which some people, this is the one and only time that they do even bother to leave their homes to come to service, which we're grateful for that. What is the message to that person? Say, for instance, if they only come once or twice, say, for instance, Christmas or Mother's Day or Easter or whatever the case, what would your message be to that person, especially people who are going through? I was having a conversation on my way over, and we were talking about, I was reading an article the other day. It was about how people are, actually, it was a book that I have called The One Thing. And it talks about how there are people who have a lot of money, but they're still missing something. They're still not happy with their lot in life. And it's a lot of people who are in that position. They can pay all of their bills. In fact, may not even have any bills, may have a ton of money, but it's still something missing. What do you say to that particular soul who's still out there soul searching, even right now as we speak?
Well, 2 parts to it. In pastoring and teaching, to encourage the members, first of all, not to stay home. A lot of members, prior to COVID would say, you know what, Pastor, I'm not coming. I'll save my seat for the guests. And we had to do a lot of teaching to correct that thinking and that mentality that we need you there. We need you here for a witness. We don't need the guests coming and seeing empty seats. We need guests coming and seeing the excitement of you in the pew, and then you reaching out, that handshake, that hug, that smile, or whatever you're going to do on that summit to encourage the believer. That's a Sunday, again, Super Bowl Sunday of the church. And we need all hands on deck to minister, to be available in the parking lot, to be greeted, to be at the door, to participate in the worship experience, to extend the message. And I don't put people down because they come on Christmas, Mother's. That's a chance to witness.
Absolutely.
That's a chance to sharpen your message. And for most pastors, we realize, that people come and you've got 2 or 3 minutes to say something that's going to get their attention before they tune you out. And so for me, Easter Sunday is about that message, putting it together. I can say not keeping people all day. Most times on Easter, I generally don't preach past 15, 20 minutes. Because if you have a lot of guests who are not unchurched, who don't know Jesus, you don't want to tune them out. Be here all day. I've got plans. I've got family coming over. I've cooked this wonderful meal. And when is he going to shut up?
Well, when I first started coming to church as I shoot the video ministry there, and we had this conversation, because I'm accustomed to, of course, coming up in the Church of God in Christ, where you have these marathon services, or in the Baptist church as well. And we had this conversation. As I told you, my church in Orange County, Cross Point, is an hour and 10. And you decided that you were going to make yours. You collapsed, the service, threw out a lot of stuff. And we're usually out of there within an hour to an hour and 10, 15 at the latest.
You can be succinct without being eternal. That's right. And so COVID, this COVID experience has changed the church forever. People who are watching from home by way of social media, they can tune in to anybody across the world.
That's right.
They don't have to listen to me or anybody. They have their own pastor, but they can listen to any church service, any sermon, anywhere. And so if you come on and don't have something to say to capture their attention, to be impressive those first 2 or 3 minutes, click the button, click the channel, and then there they go off to somewhere else.
Well, I was listening to a ministry yesterday, and they had about 20 minutes of announcements. That's one of the things, because as I was telling you, instead of doing 20 minutes of announcements, put them on the website. That way the people have to go there to check it out, and also to stay active with what's going on. One of my friends who's a pastor in San Diego, I remember telling him this at first, because he has like these 2.5 hour services. And he was like, do you feel like you miss out on something? I said, yeah, you missed a D-E-F selection from the choir. You missed about 20 minutes worth of announcements. I said, if you toss those, you're within that, within that hour and 10 minute and, time. Because again, we're living in an age right now, Pastor McCall, where people's attention spans aren't what they used to be.
You have to.
We're in the microwave age, where people want stuff and they want it instantly.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not putting down lengthy church service at all. To every pastor, each church has their own flow and what they do, but you have to be relevant. And have a message that keeps the membership of the people who are watching tuned in. And not say, all right, we've heard that before, been to that before. And announcements. If you got 4 ushers, that doesn't pertain to the whole church. You can text them, email them about the announcement. We've gone back and forth over the years about that, of what's important, what do we highlight on Sunday, using video now to be able to do that, using technology to be able to do that. So on Sunday morning, we don't have to do that. Putting the announcements on the screen before service, after service on the screen. Those are ways to conserve time and to be able to get the message in and the message out and give people a chance to worship, to praise, and to feel like they've been to a church service. And then there are those days. There are those days where we have those Sundays where we go beyond the time because Holy Spirit's there and we extend it. And listen, this notion of you can't stop, yes, you can. And there are times when we celebrate and have special occasions where we go beyond the hour.
Certainly.
But I try on Sunday mornings to come in, to hit it fast, hit it hard, get the word out, and let people go.
Well, look, I was a speech major at San Diego State University, and of course my team is about to tip off in the NCAA championship. But I was a speech major, and I always remembered some of the attributes of a good speech, and some of them include brevity. And I was at a party with the great baseball player by the name of Dave Winfield. And I remember Dave was speaking that night at this friend's engagement party, and he said, when it comes to speaking, remember the 5 B's. Be brief, brother. Be brief.
Yeah.
And have points. And when you do that, because you have to understand, people's minds start to drift after a certain amount of time. For those of you who are joining us right now, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is the Cut Chronicles, where we chronicle urban life. My guest here is Pastor John T. McCall. He's the pastor of Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in Pasadena, California. And he's also the founder and the CEO of DeVille Family and Youth Services. Why don't we segue into that? Tell us about your organization.
Well, Eric, listen, I'm blessed. 27 years ago, we organized a mental health agency in Pasadena. We started in 1993 and incorporated in 1996. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and this coming May, in fact, will be my 43rd year in the field.
Wow.
I started young, 21, I was 23 with a master's degree, worked at a number of mental health agencies, and prior to the field, I worked in a group home, a large group home for boys and girls. And in that setting, it just over time, I began to realize that we were treating all of these kids who facing trauma, had come through trauma, had been abused. And I got to questioning, why is it that we're doing the interventions after the fact? How come there is not any more intervention or prevention services? And in the 90s, that was unheard of, intervention and prevention services. Up until maybe 15, 20 years ago, is that now the norm to provide those kinds of services? And so in 91, 91, 92, we began to think with a group about, what is this thing that we're treating our kids after they've been abused, after they've been hurt, after they've gone through severe trauma? And would it be possible to develop a program that would provide intervention and prevention services beforehand, before all the major heroics have to be done to help a family? And so I met with Dr. Susan Mandel. At that time, she was the CEO of perhaps one of the largest mental health agencies in Southern California, and I presented my vision to her, and we began with two subcontracts. One to provide services to kids who were on probation. I couldn't imagine back then kids who were on probation were going to school half a day.
Wow.
Couldn't imagine that. It was like you could be in school all day. You're on probation, you're failing, you have all, and so we developed an after-school program for those kids. And then we developed a second program for kids who were at risk of being on probation, because we knew from the research then that if you were failing school, doing poorly in school academically, that you were on that school to prison pipeline. And so we developed an after-school program for kids 6 to 12. We picked them up from school with our buses and vans in the afternoon, brought them to our program site, and we gave them 3 hours, 5 days a week of day rehab, what was what the county called it, but it was structured behavioral programming, where they saw a therapist, where we did program interventions. We had the school district to give us that curriculum. We brought in tutors to help those kids be able to comprehend, to read, to understand, began to put in some structure, some discipline, meeting with families. We had a number of structured groups, recreational groups, tied to a behavioral incentive program. And over time, those kids began to improve. The schools started calling us and asking us, what are you doing? And we just said, we're providing services. And from that, we were having an audit one day. The county came out of LA to audit our program, and we had this discussion about, is this the Ville or somebody else's program? Because we were subcontracting. And the question was posed to us, why don't you develop your own business? Had never thought about it. We were comfortable subcontracting. Had never thought about going on our own and launching our own business. And then we applied to the county. We sent them a letter requesting to get a contract, and we were told no. We were discouraged and fell down. About 6 months later, a friend of mine called me, and again, instincts to know when to go, and the blessings of God over your life. A friend of mine called me and said, John, there's a meeting tomorrow at the school district. I think you should go to it. And I could have said, well, I'm too busy, I don't have time to go, but I went. And when I arrived at the meeting, the other established mental health agencies were there. Persons from the County of LA were there. Department of Mental Health were there, and they were giving out contracts.
Wow.
I went to a meeting around the table that day. Even though 6 months before we had applied and was told no, I went to a meeting where I wasn't invited, sat around the table where they were giving out contracts. And that day we received our first contract, $400,000, and 4 schools.
Well, that's awesome. What you just said really is what I tell people all the time. Half of the battle is just showing up.
Yes.
I've done it on many occasions where I've, of course, as a red carpet reporter, where I didn't have credentials, but just show up and good things can happen. That is remarkable that you were able to do that. Some of the service that you have provided, what does it make? How does it make you feel knowing that you have helped so many? And the majority of the people that you help are Black and brown.
Yes. Our population we serve are Hispanic and African American kids. I'm proud of the work I've done, what the Lord has allowed me to do over the years. We started off paying staff on credit cards and borrowing money and refinancing my home.
Wow. Great is thy faithfulness.
To get started. And as of today, we have about 100 full-time staff working for us.
Awesome.
For DeVille, therapists, social workers, marriage and family therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners, LVNs, about 102 or 3 full-time staff, a little over $11 million a year budget. We're in 21 schools. We are accredited by the Joint Commission, the highest standards you could get in behavioral health care. And the work we're doing throughout SPAR 3, which ranges from Glendale to Pomona, it's just awesome. And when you hear the stories of the family who are out there struggling, the kids who are struggling, listen, COVID changed the landscape of everything. The kids we serve were already academically behind, and COVID came. Mm-hmm. And so now we're just dealing with so much trauma, depression, suicidality, homicidal thoughts, hospitalizing kids, and mental health is real. And at DeVille, we've always had this concept about mental health. People get real spooky when you talk about mental health in the church, and trying to bridge that gap in society and with the church, to get church members to know it's okay to go talk to a therapist. It's okay to see somebody, that it's okay to pray. But I believe God will answer your prayer quicker if you got your child into some mental health, if you got into some family counseling, that things will change faster. And our philosophy of mental health has always been about how you think, how you feel, how you behave. Good psychological functioning, good emotional functioning, good behavioral functioning. If you don't think well, not feeling well, you won't behave well.
That's right.
And so there's no mystery to mental health, and we try to answer this notion of craziness, as crazy as what you don't understand. And with minority families, we discovered over the years, a long time ago, we very rarely, if ever, use that word mental health, because the word mental health with minority families is associated with the C word. You're saying my kid's crazy.
Yep.
And so having to get through that resistance, we try never to use that word. We try to go with intervention, services, assistance, counseling, help, personal assistance, anything to get us in the front door. So we can break down that barrier, that resistiveness to receiving services. Because if you refuse the services, then your child's not going to get any better. And so we're descriptive. We use behaviors and tell a parent, we can help you with Johnny throwing chairs. We can help you with Johnny cursing. We can help you with Johnny skipping class. We can help you with Johnny not feeling well. We try to get it as descriptive as we can so parents can relate to what we're doing.
Absolutely. Once again, for those of you just joining us, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is the Cut Chronicles, where we chronicle urban life, as we're on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. We are an NBC affiliate. My guest today is Pastor John T. McCall, who is, again, the founder and the CEO of DeVille Family and Youth Services. And if you want to check out that website, it's DVEAL, like Delta Victor, EAL.org, DeVille.org. And of course, Pastor McCall, just like myself, he's from Louisiana. We get things done out here, don't we?
Yes, yes. Listen, the goal was to graduate school and come to California, and 43 years ago was to make my million and go back.
Okay.
And so I'm still here because I haven't made my million yet, and still
At least
working.
not on the
serve it.
personal side, on the personal side, huh? But it's great
Yes.
that you're doing what you've done for the people of Pasadena and Southern California. That is wonderful. Let me ask you this. Say, for instance, for the children and even adults who have behavioral issues, but specifically, I guess, for the children, where do you trace that back to? Is that because of the fact that many of them either don't have parents, or they have parents who are just not teaching them in the right way, or where does that come from?
No, mental health. Mental health doesn't reign just because you had a bad parent or a bad childhood experiences. Mental health can affect all of us. And this notion of mental health, I'll give you an example. Just say you got up this morning and you were going to work and your car didn't start. And so you had to call AAA if you had it and you got your car started, and you got to work and you realized in all the commotion this morning you left your lunch on the counter. You don't have any money for lunch today. And so now you get to work and you're working, forgot your lunch, you don't have any extra money, and now your boss comes in and gives you 3 or 4 more assignments to do that day. And so now you're driving home in traffic, there's an accident on the freeway, and that now instead of taking you half an hour to get home, it takes you now an hour and a half to get home. So you get in the house, kids are home from school, rambunctious, running around the house, they want dinner, you're late. You put some clothes in the washing machine, put too much detergent in the washing machine, and now the washing machine suds run over. How do you think that parent's feeling now?
Yep.
Frustrated, angry, and now a kid needs help with homework. The husband walks in wondering where's dinner. Mental health. People don't realize any one of us at any point during the day can have a mental health crisis.
And what people don't understand also is depression itself is a mental health issue.
Yes, simple depression. We call it dysthymic disorder, simple depression, adjustment disorder. Mental health goes on this low range of, like you said, depression to more schizophrenic, bipolar, kids who don't need meds versus kids who need meds, adults who are fine talking therapy versus getting some medication to help them. There's a broad range of mental health based upon each individual's issues of what they're experiencing. And what I tell parents all the time, that it won't go away. Now, you can ignore it, and many a times we can trace a child's behavior back to preschool, kindergarten. Johnny was throwing chairs, tantruming, falling on the floor, and when Johnny's 3 or 4, oh, it's cute, and that's Johnny, and he'll grow out of it. And now Johnny's 6 and 7, still having tantrums, falling on the floor and throwing chairs, and it's not cute.
Yep.
And so now you're with the school system, and schools are not equipped to handle all of that. And so now you're creating more problems because then if Johnny's not in the classroom learning and can't take advantage of the learning, and I personally believe, we're a primary school-based provider, and part of our job on these school campuses where we're co-located at is to be able to help kids take advantage of the academics offered, to be a consultant for teachers, to be able to be there as an advice person to guide them along with strategy. If the kid has a problem, our staff are co-located on school campuses. That's their site they report to every day. And so if Johnny's having a problem, we're there on site. And therapy doesn't have to happen in a 50-minute therapy session. Therapy can happen on the hallway, on the bus, on the playground, on the stairwell. You can intervene right then and teach a child coping skills, strategies to be able to contain their emotions, talking to teachers and saying, all right, every day at 10, Johnny acts out. Or Johnny has a behavior problem because we're on the school campus. Then at 9:55, we're in the classroom. Refocusing and figuring out what it is that sets Johnny off. Is it that just at 10 o'clock he needs to have a break for 2 or 3 minutes to recontain himself? Or do you see him tapping the pencil on the desk? Or is there some twitching or motion that goes? All those things to help recognize the signs of the behavior to be able to intervene, distract, and refocus the kid. Now, it may get deeper than that with some kids who have more issues going on. They've been abused. They have a lot more trauma in their life you have to deal with. And you have to understand the trauma, and, working with schools, we have a number of great schools we work with, and being able to educate school people, school principals and staff about mental health. If I were a kid and I know all I have to do is to come on the school campus and say a curse word, and now I'm suspended for 3 days, but I'll come to school every day and say a curse word and get suspended. The goal is to be in class. The goal is to learn, because if you don't graduate school, you will have a mental health issue the rest of your life. And we know from the research, kids who don't graduate school earn less money. They're under more pressure. They repeat those same problematic behaviors over with the families that they create, and they're more at risk of being involved in the juvenile justice system. And so now you just perpetuate generationally things that you could solve today. And for us, it's like, how do we help a family break through that trauma and get them to see that you're better off dealing with it now than putting it out for a future date?
Awesome. Great works that you guys are doing. Once again, Eric J. Chambers here. This is the Cut Chronicles, where we chronicle urban life. Pastor John T. McCall is my guest. It's time for us to take one more station break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up after these words. Pastor Alaric Singletary and the Wind of the Spirit Worship Center, located at 6476 Streeter Avenue in Riverside, invites you to their Resurrection Day service. It's Sunday morning, April 9th at 9 a.m. It begins with a live outdoor dramatization of the walk Jesus made down the Via Dolorosa. Come and experience the reenactment of this historical walk beginning at Central Avenue and Carlo Drive in Riverside. The processional ends at the Wind of the Spirit Worship Center, followed by praise, worship, and the Word of God. Join us at 9 a.m. at 6476 Streeter Avenue in Riverside, or watch online at thewindchurch.org.
Wish your life came with a warning app?
That dog does not want to be petted.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Joel Preach and Team California Steppers presents the first Friday Grown Folk Chicago Steppin' Set, Friday, April 7th, 7 p.m. at Afro City inside the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall in Los Angeles. Inland Empire Steppers don't drive. Catch our luxurious party bus to Los Angeles with pickup stops in Riverside at 6 and Ontario at 7. Bus fare is only $40, and that includes admission to the set. Reserve your seat today at 877-370-4487 or visit teamcaliforniasteppers.com. Hi, I'm Eric J. Chambers. Tune in to my Jaspel radio show Saturdays from 5 till 7 p.m. right here on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. If you like jazz and gospel, you'll love the Jaspel.
Hi, I'm Beyonce.
Hi, this is Bishop T.D.J.
Hello there, darlings. It's your girl, Vivica A. Fox here, and you are tuned in to the Cut Chronicles. Enjoy.
Abused in his mother's womb by the drugs and such that she consumed. Right from the start, he had no place to be a child. Now his eyes tell the story of a world too cold to show its love, alone and afraid. He has no place to be a child. Is there no place to be a child? Is there some place that you know where a little one can go and be a child?
Once again, everybody, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is the Cut Chronicles, where we chronicle urban life. That's music from Larnell Harris, No Place to Be a Child. Here on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. My guest is Pastor John T. McCall. We began this show talking about this Holy Week. And, of course, we segued into his organization called DeVille Family and Youth Services. And as this song is talking about, there's no place to be a child. It's amazing what's happening, especially in our schools, and especially what happened here recently. And it seems like it's an ongoing story, what happened in Tennessee last week. What are your thoughts on that, especially when people start saying it's a mental health issue and not a gun issue?
Well, mental health is real. You know, if there was an epidemic of people having mental health issues and crashing cars into people, would figure out something to do. And I personally believe, you know, my personal belief is that no one should have a lone gun outside the military, that there is no need for that in society. We have enough problems to deal with without having to send our kids to school worrying, or for us to be in the workplace or wherever, in the grocery store. And
even in the church. The church is not even exempt.
Yes. And so I just think there's no place for long guns. You know, when the Second Amendment was established, they had muskets. I just, and you have to deal with life. And you have to train yourself and do the best you can to be safe and trust the Lord and put all the things in place. But I personally believe in society there's no need for that kind of weaponry on the streets. Have access to it.
That's right. In fact, speaking of that Second Amendment, I saw this one video clip by the former Chief Justice Warren Burger, and he was talking about how big of a fraud that is. Listen to what he had to say.
If I were writing the Bill of Rights now, there wouldn't be any such thing as the Second Amendment.
Which says?
That a well-regulated militia being necessary for the defense of the state, the people's rights to bear arms. This has been the subject of one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat the word fraud, on the American public by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime. Now just look at those words. There are only 3 lines to that amendment. A well-regulated militia. If the militia, which was going to be the state army, was going to be well-regulated, why shouldn't 16 and 17 and 18 or any other age persons be regulated in the use of arms, the way an automobile is regulated?
Well, those were the words of the former Chief Justice, who, of course, was a conservative, somehow the words of that got twisted and everything. And we all want life, and what people have to understand is that the lives that are being taken, there is not just Democrats, there are Republicans, and perhaps even more, attending, schools or churches or whatever the case. I just want a safe America.
They're human beings.
That's right.
They're human beings. And so, the reality of depression these days, our kids have enough to endure in the face of going through, and to be at school and worried about being shot. When I was growing up in school, we did these drop and cover, exercises for a tornado, for a hurricane.
Yep.
And so now every school has these measures. Kids are practicing for safety for a shooting. It's just like it doesn't make sense. The reality of life and the pressures people are under, and we add more pressure to it. And you have families who feel isolated, alone, nobody's there to help me, and trying to navigate life. And that's why the church, is so important. Community organizations are so important. People and relationships are so important to other people, especially now. Coming out of this, what I call this pitiful pandemic, where people were isolated, and hunkered down, and it changed everything. And before you and I wrap up, I really want to mention to us about this notion of depression and suicide, Eric, especially in the minority community. There was a time when African Americans, the number of African Americans across the country taking their lives was a very low percentage. But now we have children, young adults, taking their lives in proportion to our counterparts. And somehow we're missing it. And I encourage every parent tonight who's listening, every child who's listening, Depression and suicide is real.
That's right.
And we have to stop telling our kids, don't say that, don't think that, don't talk about that. That the reality of it is it's real. And if you see your child's behavior changing and they're becoming more introverted, isolated, alone, talking depressed, looking depressed, giving away certain items, you need to have a conversation. In fact, you ought to have a daily conversation with your kids. How are you doing? What are you thinking? Who are your friends? What's going on in your life? So you can have some idea of what your kids are going through. And many of us go through the motions. And these conversations with our children are so important, and the adults in your life.
Absolutely. And of course, the suicide prevention number is 988. You don't have to even dial the 800 number anymore. It's just the number 988 if you are having an issue or someone that you know. And of course, as he was saying, it's very important that we as parents talk to our children. And it's also important for parents to find out what it is that their children love and support them with it, especially when it comes to something that they may want to do in their life, in their career, including going to some of their activities as well. Once again, everybody, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is the Cut Chronicles. My guest here is Pastor John T. McCall. Pastor McCall, let the people know how they can get in contact with you. Of course, Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. You can look that up on Facebook or YouTube.
Yes, and if you would like to email me, it's jmccall, JMCCALL, at deville.org, and I will respond.
Okay, say that email again, jmccall.
At deville, D as in David, V as in Victor, E as in Edward, A as in Apple, L as in Larry, .org, O-R-G.
And of course, he is the pastor of Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in the City of Roses, right in the shadow of the Rose Bowl in beautiful Pasadena. Services there at 11 o'clock. And of course, you invite people to come out for Easter, right?
Easter Sunday morning, our roads lead to the Bethel Church. Come as we celebrate a resurrected Savior. He got up, so you can get up.
That's right. Give it the address.
1972 North Fair Oaks in the City of Roses, Pasadena, California.
That's right. And of course, DeVille, if you want to learn more about DeVille Family and Youth Services, go to DeVille, DVEAL.org, and you can find more information there. And also be sure to tune into the Jaspel this coming Saturday, my Jaspel program, which begins at 5 p.m. right here on this station, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. And I have a very special Easter resurrection show in store for you. You don't want to miss it. This coming Saturday, beginning at 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. And of course, you can not only listen online, but those of us who are here in Southern California, I love the fact that we can listen in the car. As I was listening to the station, as I was driving in, and we are anticipating a wonderful crowd of people all over the world, actually, this coming weekend. And so those of you who are coming for the first time, we hope that you have a blessed time and that you'll stick around. Again, Pastor John T. McCall, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's program.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, family, for being a part of tonight's program as well. Until we meet again, I'm Eric J. Chambers, saying so long, everybody.
Miss your favorite show? Download the podcast